Welcome. The Path Infernal is a brand new crossover event in Final Fantasy XIV with Final Fantasy XVI. Since there had been crossovers or collaboration events involving many recent Final Fantasies, such as 11, 13, and 15, as well as references to practically every other game in the series, talk of a crossover among fans began as soon as Final Fantasy XVI was announced. Apparently, Yoshi P, producer and director of Final Fantasy XIV, and Naoki Yoshida, producer of Final Fantasy XVI, are good friends. So a collaboration event was inevitable, so they got together and made the arrangements. Since Final Fantasy XVI was only released last year, that would mean this crossover is closer to the release of its respective game than any other Final Fantasy crossover in Final Fantasy XIV. This event ends on the morning of May 8th. You need to have at least one combat class at level 50 or higher, and have completed the ultimate weapon in the MSQ. This is the first time you are given an ending with a credit roll. No, you can't do this on Blue Mage. There is a solo battle involved, and you will be synced down to level 50 and eye level 110, so raising your eye level up to that will be advantageous, but honestly, 80 or 90 is fine if you are just recently 50. Also, you will need to unlock the gold saucer in order to purchase some items. This is done with the quest, It Could Happen to You, from the Well-Heeled Youth in Ul'dah. In order to use all the rewards, you will want to have unlocked mounts by doing the quest My Little Chocobo from your Grand Company headquarters, and have unlocked glamours by completing a quest from Swirgim in Vesper Bay. And yes, you can do this on a trial account. Unlike recently re-released crossover events, this one does not currently have a replay option. Perhaps if this event returns in the future, they will implement one. The story begins on the steppes of Nald with Neophyte Adventurer. Can I just call you Neo? Seems he's looking for you, but you might not want to admit to anything. It's okay if you don't know him, because after this you will never see him again. He was tasked by a begoggled gentleman to find you, and after you admit who you are, he runs off to find him. The gentleman is none other than the wandering minstrel himself. He had an unsettling dream, and he thinks it means something. I think he's been listening to Geely too much. It involved two stars about to collide, one of pure white, and one of blushing scarlet. That's cute. He thinks I'm the pure white one. He wants you to accompany him to a burning land, but he's not sure what that is. I give him the obvious answer, but apparently that's too obvious. Turns out either of the other two answers are correct, so we're heading to the Burning Wall in Eastern Thanalan. When you get there, the minstrel wants you to use his spyglass to see if you can see any sign of the Scarlet Star. At least I think it's his spyglass. I know I don't have one. This little minigame I think first showed up around the Stormblood expansion. You can look around by holding the right mouse button, and you can zoom in and out using the scroll wheel. When you see the cursor change, you click. In case you're wondering, what you're looking for is near the bottom. Looks like you got one. Anyway, you run over to the body, and if you are a healer, you will try to heal him. If you're not a healer, well, I'm not sure what you do, but you help him either way. This scene is saved in the Unending Journey, so you can see the difference if you like. The strange man is Clive, and besides his name, he remembers some ruins and not much else. The minstrel thinks he should be looked at, by a professional, and you all head off to the Frontistery in Ul'dah. An unusual thing in this questline is you will automatically travel most of the time. Don't get used to it though. You end up in Ul'dah near the Alchemist Guild. There will be a nice shiny destination to wait nearby. The minstrel shows up and says Clive is going to be fine, so you chit-chat for a while, and finally Clive shows up. Turns out the doctor, or Visiker, found he's not sick nor hurt. So it must all be in his head. Clive does not recognize Ul'dah, so the minstrel suggests we go to Gridania. Well, it turns out Clive has never ridden in an airship, so this should be a treat, getting to see his reaction to a brand new experience. No, I guess not. You end up in Gridania and you need to show Clive around. So escort time. With Clive following, you need to take him to these glowing circles and talk to him. So the Carline canopy reminds him of someplace he's been. And he knows what a chocobo is. And he is impressed by the aetheryte. He says it's not large enough to be a mother crystal though. I'll show you a mother crystal. That actually sounds important, but it never comes up again. So over by the Adder's Nest, Clive is taken a liking to Gridania. It's peaceful. Too peaceful. Suddenly, Clive hears someone mention Garuda, and that's a name he recognizes. So we head inside, and if it ain't my good friend Helioix. Can I just call you VH? Anyway, if you are a member of the Order of the Twin Adder, he will address you by your rank and last name. If not, he will just call you by your first name. Unfortunately, this cutscene is not saved in the Unending Journey. At first, he seems suspicious that Clive is triggered by Garuda. I mean, aren't we all? But he realizes Clive just needs some help. I mean, don't we all? So he arranges for him to meet Kanye Senna. He should be honored. That's like meeting the president. The Elder Seed Seer tells Clive about the Garuda we know, but then the minstrel interrupts and says, our Garuda is not Clive's Garuda. Dang, how many Garudas are there? He's decided Clive must be from another world. Well, Kanye can't find anything physically wrong with him. She's a healer, not a head shrinker. But she does offer some psychobabble before she sends us on our way. The minstrel wants you and Clive to meet him at Apkalu Falls. What, no teleportation this time? The minstrel offers to help Clive face his demons. Quite literally. Well, maybe not entirely. You see, the minstrel has this ability to tell stories through song in such a way that you experience them as if they are real. But he likes to throw in some embellishments, which is how we get most of our extreme trials. Most of them don't even really happen. I mean, in the game world. Which raises a lot of questions. Where was I? Oh, the minstrel puts you both in the bowl of embers, and then Ifrit appears. But then Clive says it's not his Ifrit. Here we go again. So Ifrit transforms, and Clive is like, that's more like it. Now the boss is actually called Infernal Shadow, but he's Ifrit, and that's what I'm going to call him. There are 3 difficulty levels to this fight, but you will only be given a choice if you fail the normal version. If you log out before you finish, you will again have to fail the normal version to choose the easier versions. It seems to me the only real difference is the damage is reduced considerably, except for the instant death situations. It also seems HP regeneration is a little faster. In this fight you get 2 special actions, and you can probably do the whole battle using just these, but I don't recommend it. You can keybind these if you like. Duty actions 1 and 2 are all the way at the bottom of the hotbar section in the keybind window. Oh, and keybinds are found in the system menu, which you can bring up by hitting escape. There is a little tutorial scene before the battle, but I'm going to explain it the way it makes sense to me. The first action is Rising Flames. You charge at your target and I guess hit it with a flaming wing. It does some good damage, but more important is it is great for closing with Ifrit from the other side of the arena. Unfortunately, it has a 30-second cooldown, or recast time, so you may want to save it for specific situations. More on that later. When you use dodge, you jump back, much like a dragoon's elusive jump. If timed correctly, you can use this to avoid all damage from any telegraphed AoE. After any successful dodge, the button will change into Precision Strike, which will cause you to charge at Ifrit and damage him. For some attacks, a countdown will appear, right in the middle of the screen. 2, 1, dodge. Click dodge when you see dodge for best results. Again, after any successful dodge, follow up with Precision Strike. It seems to be more forgiving for being a little too early than too late, but I was often surprised by what actually succeeded. The countdown only appears for attacks that you probably can't avoid through normal means, but you can use dodge for almost every attack instead of avoiding it in the usual way. Some are easier to dodge successfully than others though. Dodge will only change to Precision Strike if you were in the affected area when you hit the button and hit it at the right time. Each time you take damage, you will briefly have the status down for the count. This is a stun that knocks you to your knees. It usually doesn't last very long, like less than a second. There is one exception though, more on that later. Note that though the edge of the arena looks hot and threatening, it is completely harmless, just like all the other Ifrit fights. Also, no matter the job, I have found it's best to play in melee range. Okay, so now on with the fight. Rising Flames is a good way to start the battle. Ifrit will begin with 2 Vulcan bursts in a row. This is a huge AoE covering the whole arena, but there is a countdown, so use dodge to avoid the damage, following up with a Precision Strike. He will then put a small circle around both you and Clive. In most cases outside this battle, you will want to separate the circles so they don't overlap. But with dodge, you can avoid all damage. Still, might be good to separate in case you miss. After doing that twice, he will cast Spreading Fire, which creates concentric AoEs that go off in order, starting with the middle one. The normal way to avoid an attack like this is to step just outside the middle circle, and then step into the middle when it goes off to avoid the next one. This is his first ability that doesn't have a countdown, but you can still use dodge if you like. Watch the cast bar, and just before it gets to the end, hit dodge. And follow up with a Precision Strike. If you time it wrong and don't get Precision Strike, you can try again on the ring you landed on, or just use Rising Flames to close with Ifrit and avoid the next ring. Smoldering Claw is a wide frontal cone that shouldn't be too hard to get out of, but if you are in it, you can dodge and use Precision Strike. Remember to watch the cast bar. Fireball involves 5 overlapping AoEs, each with a growing circle inside. These growing circles just represent the cast bar. When they reach the edge of their respective circles, the damage happens. Run out of this. If you can't get out of all of them, do your best to avoid the overlapping areas, as those will likely kill you. You can, however, use dodge to avoid all damage. Use the glowing circle or the cast bar to time it. With Crimson Rush, Ifrit will charge to the edge of the arena, hurting everyone in his path. Often the best way to avoid this is to run straight through him, but get out however you can. After he charges is a good time to use Rising Flame, which will put you in a good spot to avoid the Tail Strike. Alternatively, you can dodge and Precision Strike him in the butt. Tail Strike is the same as Smoldering Claw, but coming out of his behind. Get out, or use dodge. Now he will repeat most of the attacks you've already seen, until Pyrasult. This is a shockwave attack. He will jump to the indicated location, and the closer you are to the impact point, the more damage you will take. In other battles, you just want to get as far away as you can, but in this battle you have the dodge countdown, so use it. After that, he will cast Infernal Shroud, which gives him a buff that just says bolstered by the power of flame, and he will be more fiery. Then he will cast Crimson Streak. This is basically Crimson Rush times 4. He will take some time to map out his 4 rushes, covering the whole arena. Watch it carefully. Get to a spot out of the way of the first rush. The best place is this small spot at the end of the second rush that is only covered by the third rush. Wait for him to do his first rush, and move into the empty spot where he was and wait. He will finish his 4th rush right in front of you. This is probably a good time to use Rising Flame, just for the damage. You can use dodge during Crimson Streak, but I don't personally recommend it. I haven't been able to effectively dodge it, but you are welcome to try, but this ability will only be used once. Seems no matter how well you handle it though, Clive will be injured. So now Ifrit casts Fetters, which immobilizes Clive, and then Burning Strike that puts a thin beam or string between Ifrit and Clive. Clive will ask you to buy him some time, and a crystal will form on the string that says, Defend Clive. If you wait too long, Ifrit will one-shot Clive, and the battle will end, no matter the difficulty level. So right-click on the crystal, and Ifrit will lunge at you and try to crush you with his fist. But of course you do your Warrior of Light shield thingy, and an active time maneuver begins. A button will appear on the screen, and it needs to be tapped. You can just click it with the mouse, or tap almost any key on the keyboard or button on your controller. I just tap the spacebar since it's convenient. It doesn't require much clicking or tapping to do it successfully, but if you do nothing, Ifrit will one-shot you, and the battle will end. Again, regardless of difficulty level. When you succeed, Clive breaks free, and the battle continues with many of the mechanics repeating. When you see Pyrasalt again, you know the phase is coming to an end. He will again cast Infernal Shroud, buffing himself. Then he will let out an Infernal Howl, causing unavoidable damage and down for the count status, but for a few seconds this time. While you're down, Ifrit tries to step on you, beginning another active time maneuver. Same as the first, just tap your spacebar. This time when you succeed, Clive rushes in to save you. After another Pyrasalt, he will become untargetable and summon 4 Infernal Swords. These need to be destroyed, just like the Infernal Nails in other Ifrit encounters. But while you are doing this, Ifrit will be casting fireballs. Yes, you can still use your special abilities if you like, but use them on the swords this time. I recommend working on one Clive is not working on, but it's not that important. After a couple sets of fireballs, Clive decides to take things into his own hands, and Ifrit is kind enough to stop casting fireballs for a bit. Clive casts Flames of Rebirth, which seems to be some kind of limit break, and does massive damage to all 4 nails. It might even destroy 1 or 2 if you did enough damage. If you just let Clive go, he might get 2 of the nails, swords, but eventually Ifrit unleashes Hellfire, killing both of you, regardless of difficulty level. So yeah, definitely help destroy the swords, swords, before that happens. He'll still unleash Hellfire, but it'll do much less damage. So one last Pyrasalt before we move into the last phase, and the last mechanic. Fiery Rampage unleashes a series of 4 attacks. First he swings his claw across half the arena, so get over to the other half. And then he does the same on the other half, so go back to the first half. Next, a circular tail sweep in the middle, so get to the outside. Finally, you have what looks like a Vulcan Burst. Remember the Vulcan Burst? Filling the entire arena, but you get a dodge countdown for this. He'll then pause for a bit and then start another Fiery Rampage. Now the fun begins. See, for every Fiery Rampage after the first, he will now add 3 or 4 small AoEs to the first 3 attacks, overlapping with the larger ones and covering more of the arena. Do your best to get out of these. If you can't get out of everything, try to only get hit by 1. Basically, avoid the spots where they overlap at all costs. You can use dodge on all 4 attacks to avoid all damage, but it can be a little tricky. You can use the cast bar to time the first dodge, but for the second and third, you'll have to watch Ifrit and do it just as he moves. And of course, the last one has a countdown, which should make that one pretty easy. Now, if you are having trouble with this fight, there are 2 easier difficulty settings. Don't be afraid to use them. It seems to me the more you use dodge and precision strike, the faster the battle goes, but it's just trickier to execute. If you are missing dodges a lot and taking a lot of damage, you might consider doing this on a healer, especially a scholar, as your fairy will automatically heal you a bit. But remember that all jobs have some form of healing. Use those actions as needed. If you just hit 50, you might consider upgrading your gear. I find 70 to 90 to be just fine, but if you still have eye level 50 gear or less, you may have a little trouble. Anyways, when Ifrit is pretty much dead, Clive takes on his final form and, well, becomes Ifrit. I think this might have something to do with the Final Fantasy XVI story. I don't know. This wasn't really necessary. We'd already won, but who doesn't like a good kaiju fight? When Clive gets back to normal, a strange wolf appears, but Clive seems to know him. Back in the real world, we find out the wolf's dog's name is Torgal, and the minstrel thinks he's here to take Clive home. So after a little bit of magitechno-babble, seems Clive now has his memory back and remembered that while he was looking for the killer of his brother Joshua in some ruins, he somehow stumbled into our world and forgot everything, as one does. Anyway, the minstrel suggests returning to the burning wall, and Torgal walks off, and we all follow? I guess in canon we walked all the way to Eastern Thanalan. But in reality, in the game, you have to find your own way there. You meet them all out by the burning wall, and Torgal is ready to help Clive get home. Time for another escort, except this time Torgal is leading the way, while the other two follow you. If you fall behind, Torgal will stop and wait for you. If you get too far ahead, he will also stop. Get closer to him and he'll start again. If you are in your low 50s, you may have to fight some things, but nothing you can't handle. The glowing circle appears when Torgal reaches his destination. Then you need to talk to Clive. So the minstrel says he now understands everything. Something about the Phoenix Force saved Eorzea, and how Phoenix is connected to Clive's brother Joshua, and some other magitechno-babble. Then Clive starts to glow, and he thanks everyone, and we say our goodbyes, and then disappears to no one knows where. The minstrel starts to feel a song coming on,
I wrote a song
but he decides against it. As you complete each quest, you will receive a little experience and gil, and completing the third and final quest gives you the achievement, Found the Flame, which grants you the Of the Twinned Star title. You get the median attire coffer. Open it to receive the 4 parts of Clive's armor set. All 4 items can be dyed, but notice very little of it is actually dyed and most of it stays black. Not really a complaint. It's better than changing some of it and the rest of it becomes a dull gray. I'm wondering if this is meant to be ready for the 2-dye or dual channel system coming in Dawntrail, since this set is included in the Dawntrail benchmark. These are not currently available from the recompense officer, so don't lose them. This will likely be patched later. Put them in your armoire right away. Using the Torgal whistle gives you Torgal as your very own mount. Mounts are found in the mount guide in the character menu. I believe the song that plays is Find the Flame, and is one of the Orchestrion roles available. More on that later. Oh, and he has this special action, Pet, because he's a good boy. Yes, he is. Using the Torgal Pup adds the Torgal Pup to your minion collection. The minion guide is also found in the character menu. If you don't know, minions are this game's version of vanity pets or companion pets. And yes, he is also a very good boy. Additionally, completing the quests adds 6 cutscenes to the Unending Journey. That's the book in the inn room. These are under other quests and special quests. Keep in mind that there are, I think, a total of 13 cutscenes, maybe more during this questline. Like most things in the Unending Journey, far from the complete story is saved. There is no special event vendor. The items are just available from the vendors always at the Gold Saucer. However, they will not appear there until you have completed the quests. Some people are speculating that they will remain on the vendor after the event is over, but if you really want them, I wouldn't chance it. There are 10 Orchestrion rolls from the soundtrack of Final Fantasy XVI. They can be purchased from the prize claim Gold Saucer attendant behind the counter. They are under prize exchange 4. If you are viewing this video at the time of patch 6.58, clicking Show Only Recently Added Items should bring them up. Afterwards, you may have to look through the list for roles without a little check on them. They each cost 20,000 MGP, so that would be 200,000 MGP to get them all. MGP is the currency used at the Gold Saucer. The Orchestrion list is found in the Logs menu. Like other Orchestrion roles you get from events, these will end up in the seasonal section. If you have a bunch, they will probably be near the bottom. You can play these on the Orchestrion in any inn-room. The Clive Rossfield Triple Triad card is available from either of the Triple Triad traders for 200,000 MGP. You can view your cards by opening the Gold Saucer window from the character menu. Then click on the card list. It's an exclusive card, so it will be found on the last page. These cards are used in the game Triple Triad, which can be unlocked here at the Gold Saucer. See my guide on unlocking the Gold Saucer. That means it's 400,000 MGP to get all the items related to this event. This was a pretty good event. The battle was epic. It's nice to meet Clive and Torgal. And of course the rewards are good. Personally, I prefer Torgal over the big-ass car. Honestly, I like the 15 event much more, as far as stuff to do and the story goes. Over the course of 3 quests, you had 3 different battles. It actually felt like my character was bonding with Captain Noctis, on a purely platonic level, of course. I mean, Clive seems nice, but he was kind of just trying to find himself most of the time. And it was refreshing they didn't play the amnesia card with Noctis. During this, Clive sees 2 experts who both tell him pretty much the same thing. Nothing physical is wrong with him. And they mention things that are never explored, like being his first time on an airship. And you would think the words Mother Crystal would make the Warrior of Light think of Hydaelyn and mention that. I know it's a different thing, but you don't know that, the Warrior of Light. There was some disappointment that Jill's outfit was not included, and I have to say that is a really nice outfit. To be fair though, they usually only have 1 outfit per event, but the 13 event had 2. I know it's a lot of work to recreate these things in a different game, especially where it has to fit a variety of body shapes, but they always seem to favor the male leads. Understand this is about variety. I have Cloud's black outfit, Noctis's black outfit, Squall's mostly black outfit, and now Clive's, which is mostly black. I know I can dye them, and they are different styles, but what about Terra, or Aerith, or Dagger, or Jill, even Quina, or Freya, even Zell? Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you found this video useful and or entertaining. If you have any questions, please comment below. Goodbye.